actually here to do a book review. I know it's a little bit different than what I normally do on my channel, but I am an avid reader. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that in any of my videos, but I just voraciously read books. And actually, over the course of all of the years of moving with the military, I've always been given a lot of grief about how many books I have, how many books are in the boxes. Even in the last years of moving, my husband has given me grief about it as well, just because I have so many books, and he's always saying, you know, you can get them on the Kindle. And so over time, I've actually gotten much less of books than I used to have, which is a truly, truly sad day when I think about it. But in my mind, I love the Kindle. I love the portability of it. If I'm sitting at a doctor's appointment or whatever I'm doing, I have the Kindle that I can just have a book right there very easily for me. But there is nothing, and I do mean nothing, in my mind regarding reading that can be beat by just opening a book, just feeling a book in my hands, just opening it, hearing the sound, smelling the pages. And yes, I know what that sounds like, but yes, the smell of books, I adore them. But anyways, I read a lot, and on top of that, I collect, so it's kind of a problem for me. But anyways, I have a sugar addiction, and I have a bad one at that. You may have known or noticed that I've mentioned it once or twice on my channel. So it does stand to reason that I would be interested in why sugar is so addicting, the history of it, things like that. And I read a lot of books about eating this carnivore way of life. The first one that I ever read was Dr. Berry's book, Lies My Doctor Told Me. Great book, by the way. I read The Carnivore Cure and Eat Like a Human, and those are just a few of them. All those books are great. They were all packed with a lot of information. So if you're looking for anything to read that deals with this lifestyle, I would recommend any of those. All of those, actually. And if you need a link to them, they're actually on my website linked. You can click on them and it'll take you right to them on Amazon if you're interested. But anyways, I was watching a video the other day with Dr. Kills, and he mentioned a book that he was reading, and I thought, oh, I'm going to have to check this one out since I didn't currently have anything. And it was called Sugar, The World Corrupted from Slavery to Obesity, and it was by James Walvin. And I, being addicted to sugar, really was very interested in it, especially because, you know, it mentioned obesity and all that. I wasn't positive about the slavery at first, so I wasn't sure. I was thinking, you know, being a slave to sugar, which it was, but it's more than that. Anyways, I don't have the time right now to be able to sit down and read a book. My most favorite thing to do is sit in front of a fire with a hot cup of coffee or tea and a book, and I read before I go to bed at night. I read in the bathtub. I read everywhere. I always am reading, but I just don't have time to right now because all of my free time that I'm not working full-time on is taken up with packing and moving. And we are in the final stretch. This is my last full week here in Texas. The week after, I'm loading the final moving truck and we will be leaving. So we are on that final push of being really busy. So I actually did this book as an Audible, and I do have a few Audible books that I have listened to because it is just very convenient for me to listen and work. So well, that's enough of that. We'll go ahead and get into the book. So again, Sugar, The World Corrupted from Slavery to Obesity by James Walvin. I think my biggest takeaway from this book was how shocked I was about the actual history of sugar and slavery and how much they were intertwined together. So growing up, I remember learning about sugar plantations. I also remember being taught about slavery and the sugar trade, but I never, and I do mean never, understood the actual atrocities of it. I didn't know how much one was actually caused by the other. So in this book, Mr. Walvin made a very clear case, and I mean very clear case of how the greed for sugar And the money that was associated with the sugar was connected to the origin of slavery in the Americas. It's very clear, and he's got a lot of information in there. Sugar, historically, it rose from being a luxury item that was only afforded by the rich and the more affluent of society to becoming a staple in everyone's diet. Royalty and the elite in the past, they have a long history of indulgence in sugar, so much so that, I mean, I don't know how much history that you may or may not know, but they would actually have statues or decorations that were made from sugar at their balls and their dinners. Crazy. And, you know, sugar is everywhere. It's in just about everything. And when you connect its history with slavery and how much it's actually been affecting the health of everyone, it's mind-blowing. Really, it is. It's just, what a deep dive. I mean, you can go down a rabbit hole looking into sugar, what sugar's in, how they manufacture foods with sugar to do so many different things to make you addicted, among other chemicals and things in it. But I don't know how much research anybody that's watching this might have done with sugar, but in the U.S., back in around 2019, so we're talking, 4 years ago, it was actually estimated that the U.S., and I'm just talking about the U.S., made something to the effect of 8.4 million metric tons of sugar. They made it here yearly. That was the number yearly. That actually put the U.S. in sixth place in global production of sugar overall. So to top that off, the U.S. actually receives about, I think it was $4 billion in annual subsidies, like things like price supports and guaranteed crop loans, tariffs, and they regulated the imports of sugar from foreign countries. They still do, which, for the record, sugar coming from foreign countries is actually priced at half of the cost per pound that the U.S. is selling it for. So that's an interesting little tidbit. But to me, that's a crazy high number. I think that's crazy. $4 billion that they're given in subsidies and things like that, and to be able to produce this much sugar. But if you imagine that the average American is consuming about 77 pounds of sugar or sweeteners in a year, I guess it all makes sense at that point. Coffee with no sugar. So, anyways, sugar is in so many things, not just candy. Sugar is added to countless food products, breads, condiments, your dairy-based foods, nut butters, salad dressings, sauces. Sugar is, it's added to food not just to make it sweet, but it also extends the shelf life. It changes the texture of foods to make it more palatable. It changes the body of them, the color, whether or not the food browns well when you're cooking it. But it's well known that it's linked to diabetes, obesity, cancer, just to name a few. And then, tooth decay. That's the big one, right? Over the ages, history has shown us that refined sugars were being ingested mostly by the rich and elite. And then they started having serious issues with rotten teeth and gum diseases. So there's a definite link to it. And that link is also made very apparent in this book. So anyways, back to the book. I think that the amount of history that Mr. Walvin lays out in this book regarding sugar and the slave trade is great. He spends just a lot of time dealing with or pounding that point home. He really does just detail the history of it. But I gotta tell you guys, it is so wordy. And that's funny coming from me. It is. But he repeats himself and his points a lot. And I do mean a lot. I loved learning how sugar was such a cash crop in Europe. And I loved learning about how it moved from Europe to the Mediterranean, and then from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic Islands, and then Africa and the Caribbean and South America, and just watching the journey and how it came about and what caused in its wake and all that. Very, very interested. I did come away knowing more than I did before. That is definitely true. And he, for sure, shows it's linked to slavery and the atrocities that happened in that trade. So be aware, he is very descriptive about that. So, if that's not the kind of thing that you're interested in, you might not want to read that book. But I can see how the demand for sugar is linked so heavily in the slave trade after reading this book. So definitely what he wanted to come across did come across. But like I said, he repeated so much. He just, I hate to complain about a book, but I do think that the book has a very serious and important message in history. But I think that if I was to have read this book in a paper format, that I probably wouldn't have finished it, because it was an Audible book, I was able to play it while I was packing, while I was doing chores, just hanging around the house. I even listened to it in the car sometimes. So at least I was actively, trying to get through it. But I found it so many times that I zoned out and I had to rewind it. I can't tell you how many times I had to. I think because he just keeps repeating himself over and over again, I think if you're actually reading the book, you probably could have got away with reading the first couple sentences of every paragraph and then skimmed the rest of it. And I think that by doing that, you still would have been able to get all of the information, because it's just so much repetition. If that kind of writing doesn't bother you, though, then you're not going to have any issue with reading it or listening to the book. I don't find that literature easy to follow for me, and it's not interesting either for the long term. The first couple chapters or paragraphs, where we're still getting into it, I'm thinking that maybe, it's going to get better, but it didn't. I do think that it's funny that I'm complaining about that, though, because if you know me at all, you know that I have ADHD, and I have been told, complained about, whatever, that I repeat myself a great deal. So it's a lot like a pot calling the kettle black, I know. But for me, it just was really, really hard for me to finish this book. And like I said, I did have to rewind it a few times because something else grabbed my attention. So again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't read this book. I think it has a lot of information that is very good. I just think that he could have cut out probably about 100 pages of it by using fewer words. So anyways, that's my take on sugar. Don't take my word for it, though. If you read it, let me know in the comments what you thought about it. I wouldn't put it on my list of must-reads, unfortunately, but the history of sugar and the slave trade did make for some very interesting reading. So, what should I read next? Do you guys have any ideas, any thoughts? Put them in the comments below, because I am looking for my next book, especially because I am getting ready to make another 16-hour drive, so it'll be perfect to listen to on the way. Thank you for tuning into this very quick video. I am just trying to try something new. If you're a new subscriber, welcome. Thank you for being here. And if you have been watching my videos from the start, I really appreciate you. Absolutely, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, eat your meat.